Okay, today I want to talk about the new Wooling hero, Sunda, the male version of the new Wooling hero. The things I want to talk about is the sword uh, and the sword with Kensei sword. Compare them with the Japanese longsword and the Chinese longsword. One thing that is very important to understand in this time period from the 14 to the 16 from the Ming Dynasty, this warrior is based on, is that the Chinese longsword are originally influenced from the Japanese longsword and so on because of the beginning was like in the Tang Dynasty. Many of the Japanese come there and they adopt the early version of the Tang Dynasty's sword. I mean, different sword they have in Tang Dynasty, and then century later, when there was a Japanese pirates attack the Chinese village, the coast, the Chinese, and then they use the Japanese used Japanese longsword, and then the Chinese see how effective the sword was and adopted the sword in their style. And it's very important too that it's a manual how they use the guandao. The Chinese, the Ming warriors used the guandao. The guandao was similar use in the fighting style as the people fighting with the hellebards in that time in China. It's very important to know that mostly of the time of the Ming dynasties of the army in the Ming dynasty used early firearm weapons and polearm weapons. The sword in that time was more used in battle as a polearm and was used as a sword. Maybe that sounds a very strange thing to say, but you have to remind yourself that the most common enemies the Ming have at the time was the Manchus and of course the Mongols. And the Mongols was horse riding people. They used there's a reason why they mostly use long distance weapons as early hand cannons, cannons on walls, the Chinese and this kind of thing, and polearm weapons. So it's more common. Then they take the Chinese longsword, but they adopt the Chinese longsword as the same style as they fight with guandao, the polearm weapon, and other polearm weapon, and this kind of thing. So there was more commonly for Ming to use polearm weapon, but the special with the guandao is that there's a weapon that is like as long as a polearm, like a spear. But the one thing more that they can do that the spear maybe cannot do is that they can cut with the sword, and so when there's an opening in the two side of the army, like the horses have stop, they can come behind and around the horse and cut the horse's legs and cut the horse so they are more for erupting the enemy side with the sword. It's much more to like cut people if they come too close to the wall, over the wall or the ship battle. They can use the sword as much more like thing that you cut on the leg of the enemy. This much more, I think, is like that. So it's similar to a spear in that way, that is long, but it's much more for opening, like a special weapon for special places in the battlefield. And this kind of thing. So and other so this important to know that some weapons in history was used from is used in different ways. Some weapons are much more useful in duels, and other weapons are much more used in war. Like, it's very important to understand that they use that thing in when they fight. They have long time they have use long sword with different shapes and so on, like all the way from the Qin dynasty to the Han and so on and so on. But there was more as a polearm. There was much more used as a polearm, and there was used as a sword, and so on. Yeah. So that is a very important thing to know. The other thing is what I think is one very fun thing. What I think is that the two swords, like the Kensei's and the Sunda's sword, are very similar, and they are also different. The similarity with the difference with Sunda and Kensei sword is that Sunda's the handle is straight, and Kensei's handle is little bent down in the handle. So the inspiration are there. You can see similarity, but the big difference is that, of course, what I really don't know for sure is that I think the Japanese, that when they use the Japanese longsword, they use it much more as a sword in that manner, and they use it. But it's a different feel to it. Like you have to remember, like the Chinese are much more different opponent in history from comparable to the Japanese samurai warrior, the elite warriors. That Japanese mostly fight samurai versus samurai, and it's more common to fight samurai in Japan and this time period. And of course, normally a Japanese soldier, so are not samurai, but they are much lower class. Like the samurai was the elite, like the elite warriors of society. To like, of course, and the Japanese medieval time. So it's important to know this is different with the Japanese warrior and the samurai. It's a totally different thing. This high rank, yeah. So the samurai are mostly common to fight against other samurai, and so on. And different weapons. The samurai have like the polearm weapons. The bow is the most important on horseback, and this kind of thing. So what I think is that the Japanese longsword was much more for similar to the Chinese against polearm weapons, spears and so on, but there was much more different way how they used that sword. It's different the combo style they used that sword comparable to the Chinese longsword, because the Chinese longsword have to use it that different way because of the different opponent. There was much more, I think they used much more trusting and different because of the armors the opponent have. The Mongols have different armor, and the Manchus and other like Vietnamese and other opponents that the Ming faced at that time and so on. So the sword was used in different way, but they are inspiration of each other, like a boomerang effect. The first from the Tang, and then the Japanese come to China at the Ming Dynasty with the pirates, and the Ming adopt the way of the style and change it more to work for them, and this way, this kind of thing. Yeah, is yeah, and absolutely last thing I really want to say is I am not any I'm not a historic weapon historians in that case. I'm not a weapon historian, so there's many things maybe I get totally wrong now in this video. So it's very important to know that I'm not any expert in Chinese and Japanese weapons in any case, so that's very important. So if I get many things wrong, so you know. So so yeah, it's very fun if you leave a comment, and if you know more about me, about these swords. I really want to know, and this kind of thing. I really enjoy this new hero for honor, and I will do a whole video for the new breach map, and this is everything I want to say, and I hope you like it, and yeah, bye.